Thank you, members. I call on Mr Grimley.
Thank you, President, and I congratulate you on your advancement to the chair in this 59th Parliament. I also thank you for your warm welcome to myself as a new Member of Parliament and look forward to working with you over the next 4 years. I begin my first speech by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we stand on today. I pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. My association with the Aboriginal peoples extends to the Western Desert region of Western Australia many years ago. The person I have become to this day is partly a result of my time spent in those remote communities, which I shall talk about later. The Western Victoria region holds a special place in the heart of Darren Hinch's Justice Party. Ballarat was chosen as the launching pad of the party in 2016 when I stood with Darren as his running mate for the federal election. Geelong was selected as a launching place for the 2018 state election. My recent job as a senior detective at the Moorabool CIU meant that I have become extremely familiar with the many towns within that shire, as well as Melton and Ararat. A previous job that I held as an educational stationery salesperson also allowed me to traverse many other towns and smaller locales within the 80,000 square kilometres that makes up the Western Victoria region. It is certainly a big patch to cover, and through my experience with the people, full of big hearts and big opportunities. I would like to thank many people who have supported me along the journey so far. To all the volunteers at many booths around Western Victoria, those who stood in the searing sun and the pelting rain without any complaining, simply doing it for the love and commitment to the key issues that we passionately stand for. Although we could not field volunteers at every booth, those that we did have to this day remain solid supporters and friends. In particular, to my cousins Scott, to Rob and Deb at Bacchus Marsh in Melton, Kim at Colac, Christian, Daryl and my mother-in-law Anne at Geelong, Jeanette at Torquay and Marion and Sarah at Ballarat, Elsie at Corio and also my dad Jim, who manned the booths no matter what the conditions every day, as he believed so much in what his son was standing for. To all the volunteers, I thank you very much. To my mum, who has also supported me along the journey over the years and who has always been there to help in any way she can, I thank you. I'm a very lucky person to have such supportive parents who have stuck by my side throughout my life and never wavered in their love and devotion to their only son. To my in-laws, Christy, Brett, Paula and my father-in-law Wayne, I also like to thank you for being there for me and helping out whenever and wherever you could over the years. And thanks for the food fights at our family gatherings as well, none of which I started myself. My previous work colleagues at Victoria Police, in particular at the Moorabool CIU, Daniel, John, Josh, Brian and Ben, and also Troy and Nathan. Your advice and thoughts on how we can improve our legal system over my tenure will now have the opportunity of being heard in Parliament. And to all my previous brothers and sisters in blue, and indeed all emergency service workers, rest assured that you now have a representative within Spring Street who will work tirelessly to improve our judicial processes and also work towards addressing and supporting the mental health issues that are becoming all too familiar. I thank all the candidates that ran in the state election under the banner of Darren Hinch's Justice Party. Your commitment to the cause is to be commended, and your continuing support as we lead into a federal election this year is greatly appreciated. I would also like to thank my friend and colleague Tanya Maxwell. Like myself, Tanya has also been with the party for many years and was selected as a candidate from her commitment for tougher sentencing and more support for victims of crime, something of which I know both of us will continue to push as new members of Parliament. Thanks, Tanya, for your support and loyalty, and together we're going to make a formidable team in this House. We have a leader and founder of the party, Darren Hinch, a man of conviction, some may say too many convictions. It is well documented that Darren has completed many periods of detention for standing by his beliefs for the betterment of the community. I've never come across anyone, past or present, who has been willing to forego this amount of personal sacrifice for what he believes in. I thank Team Hinch, in particular Annette, Ruth, Glenn, Clinton, Carly and Zoe, for your support and loyalty towards myself at all times. Without all of you, I wouldn't be in this position. Darren, your friendship towards myself and my family over the years has been warmly welcomed. We've always had great respect for each other, and your loyalty towards myself is much appreciated. Last of all, and most importantly, I thank my wife, Mandy, and my two kids, Michael and Brianna. Mandy, you're the my rock and the love of my life. How you put up with me, I do not know, and I'll never understand. I'm the proudest father of my 2 kids. They've been through some tough times and have come out the other end with strength and, most importantly, a great sense of humour. Despite going to a Christian Brothers high school in my younger years, I've never been a religious person. My family is my religion. I look to them for guidance and support. Instead of church, our Sundays are spent together, enjoying each other's company with the occasional barbecue or game of Monopoly. However, I'm always reminding my children that just because I or we do not believe in religion, that doesn't mean that our views are better than anyone else. Your religion or race or sexual orientation does not define you as a person and does not make you a better or worse person than anyone else. We're all the same, we're all human, and we all share this one world we have. I've been fortunate to have had a happy and healthy upbringing as a child. I spent my first 12 years in the much maligned suburb of Elizabeth in South Australia, where we as kids made the most of our environment by exploring, playing sports and trying to stay out of trouble. It wasn't long for trouble to find me, and I soon found myself in the back of a police car after being caught trespassing on a building site with my friends. Even though my friends ran away when the police came, I stayed. Maybe because I wasn't too sure of what I was doing was wrong, or maybe I knew that running away wasn't the right thing to do. Regardless, I was taken back to my parents' place, and by that stage I was petrified. Yes, back then, kids had a distinct respect for the police, something of which is sorely lacking nowadays. Anyway, I think my parents saw the writing on the wall and a move was on the cards out of Elizabeth and off to Geraldton in Western Australia, where I was to complete high school. I've often said that had I not been taken out of that environment, then maybe I would have ended up on the other side of the thin blue line. The move away to a new state, a new school, and away from my friends was tough to begin with, but I soon had a new bunch of mates to hang out with, and by the end of high school, I had discovered the beauty of the beach and a beer. It also meant that I spent more time surfing than studying, and my grades may have suffered as a result. My tertiary entrance score meant that I was ineligible to attend university, even though at that stage I still had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. It wasn't long after year 12 that I decided to move back to South Australia was on the cards. And it was there that I somehow got word that a tertiary entrance score in WA was worth more in South Australia. How and why, I do not know, but it meant that I was able to begin a course at Uni SA, a Bachelor of Arts in Education. After completing 6 months of that course, I was able to transfer to a university in Western Australia. Where there's a will, there's a way. From there, I completed a teaching degree and became a pretty decent teacher. But my first job was in a challenging environment, to say the least, the Western Desert. Getting your first full-time job as a teacher is a pretty exciting time. Knowing that your accommodation in the desert consists of a caravan parked at the back of the school with a toilet and shower some 50 metres away definitely took the gloss off the great news. I use the term caravan loosely, by the way. It was more of a metal box on wheels with a bed big enough just for my legs to hang over the edge. As a wide-eyed and ready to change the world young fella, this made the experience a little more challenging, to say the least. To top it all off, I was told that it was a dry community. I recall saying something like, "Of course it's dry, it's a desert." Imagine my surprise when I was informed that by dry they meant no alcohol. You could have knocked me down with a feather. This is a place where the temperatures can reach above 50 degrees. And as a 23-year-old at the time, I never knew such places existed. Anyway, my body seemed to respond well to the zero alcohol during the school term, and my teaching career was off to a flying start. I loved the job, and I loved immersing myself in a new culture and meeting many wonderful people. It was all English as a second language, and I soon became familiar with many of the common words of the Ngarrindjara dialogue. The first of which were the swear words, of course, as these seemed to be the most commonly used in the classroom when I first started. It was also during my tenure as a desert teacher that I experienced the impact and frequency of abuse suffered by children, as well as domestic abuse suffered by many families. At times, I felt helpless. Even more so, as the nearest police station was over 3 or 4 hours away. Maybe this is where I began to learn how to communicate with people under extreme duress, something of which became invaluable to me as a police officer. I often reflect back on my time in the Western Desert and have come to the conclusion that I've learnt more from the Indigenous peoples than what I could ever teach them. I'm very thankful for that, and has maybe become a strong advocate for improved living standards of all Aboriginal peoples. The tie that I'm wearing today comes from an Aboriginal artist and is a symbol of acknowledging and thanking the peoples of the Western Desert for my past being here in this present. Doing the hard yards in the desert set me up well enough to gain a position as a school principal in the Wheatbelt region of Western Australia. There is something about the country that has always had a strong pull with me. However, to further my career, I had to move back to the Big Smoke in Perth, where my passion for teaching was overcome by my passion for justice. Where or how this came about, I'm not too sure, but it was a strong calling that couldn't be ignored. My time as a police officer has been served in the northern suburbs of Perth and also in Kalgoorlie. I have a lot to be grateful for my time in Kalgoorlie. It was where I met my wife, Mandy, in a pub, believe it or not. It was there where our firstborn son, Michael, came into our lives. And it was where I began to understand the issues of our Indigenous people's struggles with alcohol, homelessness and crime. This was nearly 20 years ago, and sadly, these issues still remain to this day. After our son was born, we made the decision to relocate to Victoria, as we soon realised that our family would be more suited being closer to our relatives in the eastern states. After a short stay in Mount Gambier, where our Brianna was born, we continued to move to Victoria, where we settled in Geelong. My reappointment as a police officer in Victoria has seen me in positions including general duties, as well as a detective in the Sex Offences and Child Abuse Investigation Team in Footscray, and finally as a detective in the Maroochydore Police Service area. Being a police officer can be rewarding, is often thankless, and is always challenging. It is a job where you will see what the worst of humanity can deliver, yet at the same time it is a job that can deliver justice to people so desperately seeking it. It has been a job where I have talked people out of jumping off the Westgate Bridge, where I have comforted a dying young man trapped in his car after an accident, where I've supported family members following the sudden and unexpected death of a loved one, and where I've trawled through thousands of child abuse images on a pedophile's computer trying to identify victims while categorising the images on a scale required for prosecution. And it has been a job where I've had to do the dreaded door knock to tell a parent that their child has died. These are the jobs that our police service does day in and day out. So, when you're having a bad day, just remember who's out there trying to make your life and community safer. From someone who failed to get into university after year 12, to someone who has been a teacher, principal, police officer, detective, and now a member of Parliament, says something about persistence, commitment and hope. I've often said to my children and other school students that your results in a test are not a reflection of who you are or who you could be. I always encourage my children to do their best, but not be defined by results. Be defined by your potential and what you can do to be the best version of yourself possible. And yes, there will be mistakes along the way. How can we learn without them? You'll all get to know me as a pragmatic person, willing to listen to all parties. I'm here as a representative of the constituents of Western Victoria, but more importantly, I'm here as a father and a family man, and I look forward to what the next 4 years will hold and the new lessons to be learnt. Because we are not only here to make our communities better places to live, but this is also a rare opportunity to make our own lives the best they possibly can be. That is my story, that is my ethos. Thanks for listening.
Can I ask members